So over the past 6 months, I've pretty much exclusively used Mac. And to be honest, I don't see myself using anything but a Mac for my daily work anytime soon. But what's best for me might not be best for you, so throughout this time, I've gathered some of my thoughts.
I've used both Windows computers and Macs, so I'll be going over what exactly draws me to Apple's ecosystem for computers, like hardware, performance, operating system, and price.
And of course, with any decision, there are downsides, so I am going to get into those a little bit more towards the end. And I haven't only previously used both Windows and Mac, I actually still own both. This is the desktop that I usually have in my room, and I used to do all of my client YouTube video editing work on it. I'll throw the specs on screen in case you're interested. And back you go. And then about 6 months ago, I bought this MacBook, which is a M4 Max, which I definitely went overkill with. I'm not gonna even attempt to claim that I need this much power. I don't. A lot of people don't. This is by far the most expensive computer that I've owned, and I think it's actually the most expensive thing I've ever bought other than my car. But my purpose of buying this was not in fact to flex on people in a coffee shop, because I don't leave my house. It's actually to flex on people who watch my videos, like you. I mean, the real reason I bought it was just to have like a future-proof long-term device that can run all of my creative tasks, specifically video editing. And spoiler alert, so far it is definitely succeeding. So that means the only real reason I'm keeping my desktop around is for occasional gaming, which recently has almost exclusively been Battlefront 2. Amazing game, could even be my favorite of all time. Anyway, before I had this MacBook, I was running Premiere, Resolve, even some Photoshop, all on my desktop there, which for the most part, it actually ran pretty well, but running the same exact softwares on a MacBook like this one here, it is not even close. This is just way better. And I feel like it's not just the spec difference between this and that, although I would be absolutely stupid to not acknowledge that that does make a difference. But it kind of just seems like with Mac and specifically Mac OS, all these creative apps just run a lot smoother and they definitely crash a lot less. But Windows actually does have like one advantage, especially when it comes to softwares. And perhaps you're not a fan of monthly subscription pricing models, if you know what I mean. ARG. Sail the 7 seas. If you know, you know. But something that is not on Windows and Mac only is Final Cut Pro, which is the video editing software that I like to use for my own videos. Like this video will be edited on it. But I've also used DaVinci Resolve on this MacBook, and it moves like absolute butter. So that means since I got this MacBook, I have almost no reason to do any editing on that desktop. Like now I have more power, more RAM, more credit card debt, in a more portable body. I mean, look at this guy, right? Nice and thin compared to this fellow here. Oh my God, the dust filter fell out. Look at that. I'm allergic to dust. Windows is trying to take me out and not on a date. But what I was trying to do is show you the size difference. This can't even fully fit on screen. And then here is the MacBook and fit on top of it. Oh boy. So that was the extended way of saying I like laptops. That was not worth it. And also like 30 minutes ago, good timing, my brother actually just got an M2 Air, and he went from a Windows laptop to now Mac. So now you might be thinking, if I care that much about portability, it's reasonable to get a laptop, but Windows laptops also exist, believe it or not. Why didn't I opt for one of those? Well, for one, I personally have never seen an Apple product that doesn't have a high build quality. And that's not to say that there aren't Windows laptops that have it. But for Apple, across like all their devices, it's pretty consistent. You know what you're gonna get, you know it's gonna work, and you know it's gonna be built well. And secondly, more specifically for laptops, and this is kind of a big one, is battery life under heavier loads with things like video editing. Macs tend to be a lot more power efficient, and Windows laptops tend to burn to a crisp within an hour and a half. And another bonus on top of that is in those same kind of higher demand power situations, the fans are completely silent, almost always at least. The only time I've actually been able to get the fans to kick up are when I'm rendering out the edit. Which like, yeah, it does get, you know, pretty loud. Maybe even just as loud as turning on a desktop. You know, it's the sound of all of my hard work leading to yet another delectable video. They're not delectable. They're terrible. That hurts. And I guess on the topic of hardware, I kind of have to mention how good these trackpads are. I used to completely hate every single trackpad until I've owned an Apple laptop, and these I use almost all the time. Even when it's like plugged into my setup, I bought a separate Magic trackpad. Matter of fact, this right here. So even when my laptop's on a stand off to the side, I can still use a trackpad. That's how much I like them. But for some reason, I actually kind of prefer the one built into the laptop. I don't even know how to explain it. It just is like smoother. It interacts with my finger oils differently. I don't know how it works. And actually, a little fun fact, on the 16-inch laptops like this one, the trackpad built into it is like almost comically huge. And in some dimensions, it's actually bigger than the separate trackpads you can buy. And I did make a video when I first bought this laptop, but since I've been using it like every single day and it's a little time later, I kind of wanted to make a updated review, and a few pros have continued to impress me, but a few like small cons did pop up specific to the laptop. So if that is something that you want, feel free to subscribe or let me know, and I will make it. In fact, I've already written the notes and title ideas and thumbnail concepts, and I'm gonna make the video whether you want me to or not, so don't even bother wasting your time commenting. But all that's kind of just to say, especially for a laptop, I don't really think you can beat a Mac. And I love how they put the same exact chip that they put in the desktops in the laptop, so in a way, this is literally a portable desktop, and you definitely pay a fee for that. Genuinely, like, if you know, I am curious, what is the Windows alternative for like an M4 Max? Like, to my knowledge, this is the most well-rounded laptop you can get. And a huge reason why I opted for an Apple device over any Windows device, this might be controversial, but I prefer Mac OS. But before I really give my opinion on operating system here, Windows, Mac, Linux, they all get the job done. Like, I used Windows exclusively for years, but on Mac OS, there are a few things that I very much so prefer. And the first one is I actually prefer the Finder file system. I think kind of some of the sorting or grouping features are a bit weird, but kind of just the overall way that you can move folders and files around anywhere. And I mean, just like the little things, like if you have a bunch of clips and you want to drag it into a subfolder, you hold it over the folder, you wait, it opens the folder, and then you could drag it into the subfolder, which is a super simple feature that I don't think exists on Windows. And I just found, especially working with Windows daily for like 3 years, a lot more just goes wrong. Like, my mouse randomly disconnects from Bluetooth and I have to restart my computer, or my audio inputs get changed overnight and I have to go to the sound mixer and select input and output again. Or just the weird error messages in editing softwares that I've never seen on this. Just Mac is a lot less problematic. And I know you can get it as a free plugin on Windows, but being able to select a clip and hit the spacebar to preview it is just so nice. And another part of the reason why I like the trackpad so much isn't just the way it feels, it's the way you can use it. Specifically with like the Mac desktop view switching, you just take a few fingers and swipe left or right, and it is the most seamless way just to switch between tabs. And I do think Windows laptops have this now, but I remember trying to use it and it just wasn't as smooth. And I mean, obviously Windows has their own version, but Spotlight search I've always found works pretty well, just opening certain apps or finding certain settings. And kind of a big one that I'm surprised is not on Windows, and I don't know why it's not, is the little help bar at the top. This can be super, super clutch if you're in like a specific software like DaVinci Resolve, where you can get lost in the menus so easily. You click the little help bar, search for what you're looking for, and it shows you in that software exactly where that setting is. I mean, there's just a lot of things like that that I just prefer with Mac OS. And if you want a full video dedicated to that, I mean, feel free to let me know and I can make one. But I mean, just overall, I mean, especially with being an iPhone user, everything just works so well. Like AirDrop or text messages or notes, even things with like the Find My tracking, or even just with AirPods, how it can automatically detect when I'm on my laptop and it switches to it. But the one thing Mac OS can definitely not do is play games. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. The good is because, well, I can't get games on this really, so less of a distraction. The bad thing is if I do ever want to play a game, I'm gonna need to keep around a desktop or buy a console or something separate. But like I said, and probably as you're imagining, there are always downsides. And in this case, there definitely is a big one, and then a few smaller ones that could be deal breakers for some people, like upgradability and swapping parts out. Now, unless you're getting like a framework laptop with Windows on it, which is like completely modular, and I absolutely love that. On most laptops, you're probably only gonna be able to swap out like storage, like an SSD or RAM. But to be fair, that is like debatably the two most important things to upgrade. And Apple doesn't have any of that. What you buy is what you get. I think that's like partially the reason why I went with 64 gigabytes of RAM instead of 48. The idea of potentially needing just a little bit more RAM like far out into the future scared me so bad that I decided to pay the overpriced few $100 upgrade now rather than have that lingering fear of needing a whole new device to get more RAM later and spend thousands of dollars. And that kind of perfectly brings us right down the road to the biggest downfall of a Mac. And everyone already knows this. It's expensive.
So here's the price for this MacBook. I did do a few things to get it down, which I kind of went over in my initial review video, but this is what it would cost to get a somewhat similar spec Windows laptop. I mean, I'm willing to pay that difference for Apple, but for so many people, that just does not make sense.
It's like the more you spend, the less you get. And I'll put a graph showing the price you pay to the performance you receive. I mean, wow, like look how artistic I am. Is that a number 2 pencil? Good job, Carter. Like the M4 MacBook Air is probably the most powerful laptop you can get for around $1,000. And the M4 Mac Mini is probably the most powerful computer you can get for around $500. But once you get something like a slightly or not so slightly upgraded MacBook Pro, you're spending a lot, especially when upgrading things that are blatantly overpriced like RAM and definitely the SSDs. I mean, I absolutely love this machine. I'm just not sure I love the price I paid, but I can sit here with like 100% certainty and say I will not need an upgrade anytime soon. So I'm glad the computer that I plan on having for a long time has a lot of things that I prefer, including the operating system. Like no matter what system, machine, or operating system you have, if it works for you, it works for you, and literally nothing else matters. But computers are expensive, so I think if you're gonna be shelling out a bunch of money for something, it's important to kind of consider what you do prefer.
I've worked on plenty of successful videos on a Windows machine and less, but still plenty of successful videos on a Mac. And I can say that generally, I'm definitely looking forward continuing to create, and I'm definitely grateful to have what's in a lot of ways my dream computer to work with.
But thank you for watching, and if you're still watching this far into the video, you should probably find a hobby. But if you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.